Και συνεχίζουμε το πρόγραμμά μας με μια εξαιρετική συζήτηση πάνω στα θέματα του τουρισμού. Τίτλος της ενότητας είναι Key Pillars of a New Tourism Strategy for a Sustainable, Inclusive and COVID-Safe Future. Μαζί μας έχουμε τη χαρά και την τιμή να φιλοξενούμε τον Υπουργό Τουρισμού, τον κύριο Βασίλη Κικίλια. Όμως το συντονισμό θα τον κάνει ο αγαπητός μας Πρόεδρος Επιτροπής Τουρισμού, ο κύριος Tim Ananiadis. Tim, hello, and hello to the rest of the group here. So Tim, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Elias. And thank you, Minister, for joining us. Before we start, I understand that you had a few comments to make, Minister, before we start the discussion.
Very shortly and briefly, Tim, thank you very much. It's an honor being among you today, even from a distance. Well, technology helps, of course, and it's an empty establishment here. I took off my mask, but this is a big part of why we made it with tourism on 2021. It was because travelers, and I think you guys know that, prioritized safety in terms of tourism in this year, and we were a positive example of rebranding our country through health protocols, through respecting people, respecting travelers, guiding them through, and Prime Minister Kikilias came out early and gave predictions from mid-May to us being open, our protocols, the way we're going to handle business, and of course, I have to add the cooperation between the private sector and the public sector. Big thanks to hoteliers, to people of tourism, people of airlines, tour operators, and everybody sticking to the protocols. I want to remind everybody, quarantine, hotels, private physicians, public physicians, multiple testing. This all added up and helped have an impressive 2020, where everybody else in Mediterranean didn't open, and a huge 2021. Possibility was earnings around 5 billion euro for 2021. We have exceeded 10 billion euro, and still we got the last 3 months of the year to add up to the equation. Well, employment, taxation, and liquidity are key things for me that the industry has to focus on. We're trying to help and support them. We got 320 million of our RRF, our resilience fund, coming from the EU on infrastructures, winter tourism, summer tourism. We're trying to create a unique touristic experience, and this is also, of course, for the private sector, for investors, hopefully also from the US, coming here to invest in what is number 5 brand globally, Greek tourism. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister. And just to give a little bit of a idea who's on the panel, although their titles are there, we have Dimitris Manikis, who's president of Wyndham Hotels and Resorts for Europe, Middle East, and Africa. It's a huge region for the company, and they have a very active presence in Greece at this point. Dimitris would be very curious to hear your opinions and your suggestions around the subjects of sustainability and human resources and the predictions for next year. My friend Peter Vlitas joining us from New York, Executive VP for Internova Travel for Partner Relations. The ones that don't know or not familiar with Internova Travel Group, they have under their umbrella the travel agencies like Altour, Travel Leaders, Andrew Harper, Gel Travel, Pro Travel, and websites like Hotel Wholesale Road Trips. Peter has been very familiar with the Greek marketplace and a vocal supporter of Greece over the years, especially for the North American market. I'm very happy to have an educator as part of our group. Michael Cheng is the Dean of Chaplin School of Hospitality, Tourism Management here in Miami for Florida International University, one of the top hospitality schools in the country, and the person that is in charge of our future leaders of our industry, educating them and guiding them. So it would be interesting to hear his opinion. And finally, Andreas is part of Deloitte, and Deloitte. He's the hospitality and leisure president for that, vice president for Deloitte. And he's the guy that gives us all the statistics that sometimes we like, sometimes we don't, but they're true, and they're the ones that we have to respect. So I will start the questions. We have three separate segments for the questions. One is around sustainability. The other one is around human resources, inclusiveness, and employment, which is a big hot topic for us as of late. And the third is the projections for the short future. So I will start with you, Minister. You just told us, and I know that we've had a much better season than the expectations. A lot of it thanks to the North American market and all the direct flights. I would like to hear a little bit more about the sustainability efforts of your ministry. I know I've read something about Mykonos and Santorini becoming some of the priorities for you, and how important you feel that sustainability is part of your strategic planning. Correct, Tim. This is a key essence of our strategy, of the administration strategy, and a key effort of the Prime Minister and mine to be able to support our brand destinations, starting with Santorini and Mykonos, and then spreading it out in a network all around our touristic islands and also establishments. Well, first of all, we're initiating a legislation in Parliament. Finally, we will have DMOs in Greece, destination management organizations, with private and public sector co-working in order to be able to pushing tourism forward, but also in sustainability matters, and also observatories within our legislation too, which means that we're going to try to use tools in order to be able to help use and create a framework and support that. We will be working with the private sector and with scientists, and we will take out in public in not more than 15 days the way that we will support these destinations. And this has to do with organizing and managing cruises, organizing and managing travelers, of how they get to the destination, leave the destination, supporting infrastructures, and building a network of sustainability that can prolong, first of all, the touristic period in our islands and also in our brand destinations. Then digitally organize it, not in a first come, first serve, but in a diminish carbon fuels and support green tourism. And this is going to be out in public in a few days. We have a short-term policy, a middle-term policy, and a long-term policy. So short-term policy will acquire the way we get to the islands and live to the islands, specifying it for cruises. The middle term will have to do with how we use the installations, and the middle long term is how we rebuild and strengthen and upscale and rescale the infrastructures. So soon a modern policy and a modern strategy concerning sustainability, which is a key essence of our policy. And let me not remind you that Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis has already done it with Astipalea, has already done it with Halki, completely green islands, completely renewable energy, and a big boost to the new wave of strategy of this country. Great. Thank you very much. Thank you. Dimitri, Wyndham has thousands of franchise and managed properties throughout the world. How do you manage your sustainability efforts? And more importantly, has anything changed past the pandemic, or I would say because of the COVID challenges? Because during the COVID challenges, obviously, some of the sustainability efforts were put on pause.
Thank you, Tim, and thank you for inviting me. And great to hear what the minister said. One thing that we all realize: this is not one person's or one company's job. This is everybody. This is governments, individuals. This is Michael's and education. And I think what we've done with Wyndham, we've got about 9,000 hotels around the world. We're the biggest franchisor of hotels. We educate. You need to educate your franchisees. It's very difficult to be unrealistic, right? You need to be realistic. You need to give them certain goals. You need to make sure that you set the objectives. And you need to remind everybody that this is a marathon and not a sprint. So this cannot change from one day to another. This will take time. It will start with the governments. It will start with the education, the future leaders that Michael is bringing into the industry. It will change with the experts and the consultants. It won't be one person's or one company's job. What we've done and what we've seen at Wyndham is that COVID has actually accelerated the narrative. The narrative has always been there. Sustainability has always been a key objective of every single hotel company out there. What COVID has actually done, it has accelerated it. It made us think more, and it made us look closer to what is important, not for us, but for the planet, the people in the planet. You see, tourism, it wouldn't be where it is today if it was all these incredible places that we all enjoy to do. And one of the things that we need to remind ourselves as key priorities to preserve them. So how we do it, we educate, we do it with reality, we do it by building trust, and we do it with working with all the stakeholders around the world in order to make sure that everybody has a role to play.
Thank you. Michael, I'll jump on you first before I go to Peter. The question is, how much of your curriculum includes sustainability at this point, and how do you see it in the future in terms of sustainability for your students?
Thank you, Tim, and I fully agree with Dimitris. Sustainability has always been a core focus within our curriculum, and if anything, the pandemic has really put more light and emphasis on the crucial factor of what sustainability does for our planet and for us. So prior to the pandemic, we've always had a focus. We have 2 or 3 classes that cover sustainability, including tourism as well. And the pandemic has heightened the interest of it. FIU, we're the 4th largest university in the country. We have several different programs here outside of the School of Hospitality, focusing on environmental sustainability. But then here, the Chaplin School itself, we are the largest hospitality school based in Miami, Florida. And of course, our proximity to the beaches and our concern with sea level rise, we've always been very keenly aware of what sustainability does to tourism. And that's why in the last 2 years, even before the pandemic, we put our heads together and we said, we got to be doing more than just teaching our students the business of hospitality and tourism. We need to be teaching our students courses on sustainable tourism practices. What happens when over-tourism happens, or what happens if we don't mitigate the effects of tourism. That's why we put together for a program called Global Sustainable Tourism. It's a brand new degree that we launched and got approval from last year, and it's launching in January 2022. And it's a brand new degree that blends sustainability principles with the business of tourism. So we're very clear on what happens if we don't take care of the planet. The economic impacts of the pandemic has taught us what happens if there's no travelers, but also what positive effects comes out of reduced travel too. So this is a program that's brand new, fully online. It's interdisciplinary. It's the only one of its kind within the hospitality school, and it's a STEM degree, and it focuses on providing students with a foundation in ecotourism, carbon offsets, sustainable tourism, environmental hazards, and the pressures on natural resources and the viability of the business of tourism. So it definitely will teach our students how to build tourism around the experience while mitigating the harmful effects and protecting our environment. So like I said, it's fully online. It's going to be offered anywhere that you want to take it from.
Perfect. Great. Peter, obviously your travel advisors, your websites are influencing travel decisions for all the travelers, millions of them. So how do you approach sustainability? And the question is, although we hear in the media that sustainability is part of the decision making, is it really? I mean, what's your view on that?
The pandemic has added more focus to sustainability, right? At Internova, we have added a sustainability officer. We have taken this opportunity, and once again, I applaud Greece for taking a leadership role on sustainability and tourism, as they did in opening up during the pandemic and putting Greece in the forefront for tourism. So what we have done is we're partnering up first and foremost with our airline partners because, carbon offsets, but it's not only carbon offsets that we now have clients who are asking us specifically, especially in the corporate arena, what is our carbon offset policy? Who are our partners? But on the leisure side, people are asking as far as what is the country doing for sustainability? What is the properties doing for sustainability? So although I don't think today in 2021, it's a key decision maker on ground, right? I do think though that it is a decision maker on air and who they fly. United just had their first flight where all the fuel was biofuel. And keep in mind, the cost is 8 times, but we are moving in that direction. So as far as transportation, as far as cruise, as far as ferry, as far as air, I absolutely think sustainability in today's world will play a more prominent role. I think as we move forward and hotels develop and mature their sustainability program, as far as how they save on energy, as far as cleaning, as far as bedding, and all those products that come, and who their partners are. And once we get a rating system, right, that's important. It's okay to say I have a sustainability program, but what does that really mean? What is your rating? Right now, we actually, for those who are not familiar, but the big credit ratings, Dun & Bradstreet and others, now put in a corporate rating, what is your sustainability program? So there's 3 facets. One, the immediate impact is going to be in flying, transportation modes. The second will be in hospitality, ecotourism, going where, let's also talk about keeping the not having over tourism, not destroying the nature, not tearing down things because you want to build more things. So it's a balancing act. But I think I'm happy to say that we're all paying attention. It's a critical part of our organization. And remember, Tim, as you know, we have over 60,000 agents under our influence. So for us, it's getting the message out that this is here, it's now, and we have to promote it. And we have to support those countries, those destinations, those partners who actually have a real sustainability program.
Thank you, Peter. Andreas, it's the independent hoteliers. If you can give us an idea, you do have a Deloitte sustainability program available. The question is, how do you see the big chains reacting to it? But more importantly, how do you see the demand from the independent hoteliers? And how do you feel long-term, if you can give us an idea of the future cost of of sustainability policies and procedures?
Yeah, thanks. And it's a pleasure to be with you all today. I think that's a very hard question to answer because I think, from my perspective as an industry, I think we're still struggling with what the definition of sustainability actually is and what that means for individual hotels and who's responsible for what, right? The owner, the operator, the guest, all the suppliers, airlines have just been mentioned and so on. And the result of that is, what we see is a huge number of different approaches and still a lack of consistency, I think. Now that sounds negative, but clearly, positively, the overall direction of travel is really positive in terms of the topic and how much airtime it's getting and how it's moved up the boardroom agenda. But I also think it's worth highlighting who's really leading that change. And from what we're seeing, it's not the consumer at the moment. So the key acceleration of change has really come from institutional investors, and that is then followed by regulation. And the consumer is really still selectively choosing when to engage on this topic. And from a hotel perspective, tends to still buy based on price, based on location, and sustainability is an influencing factor. And I think what that means, you mentioned the kind of independent hotelier. I think because the institutional investors are really driving this change, there's, and they tend to be more aligned with branded global hotel chains, there's a bit of a risk that the independent hoteliers not feeling that same pressure to move the agenda forward. And that's a generalization, but they don't have that same pressure. And so there's a bit of a risk of that independent hotelier potentially falling behind. So I think that's something to really focus on. And then just briefly, in terms of your question around cost, again, very hard to answer simply because of, very variable based on location, size of the property, what facilities they have, age of the property. But what I would say, it's not a question whether you implement appropriate sustainability approach. It's not a question of when, right? The answer is now, or it was yesterday. But it's figuring out what you do and how you do that. And in most cases, that may need some specialist advice. But just to give you kind of, an example of that, independent hoteliers shouldn't wait to make that change. I think, I was just looking at a resort in the Mediterranean where with a very, very modest investment of about $10,000, sustainability savings of $90,000 per annum could be achieved, right? So it's not always about the big brands making the change or, global initiatives and things being out of reach, but it's also about, leaning in and making the change at your individual property as well.
That's interesting. Yeah. The reason I asked about the cost is because a lot of people in our industry correlate sustainability with excessive costs. So that's, which is not necessarily true. So what I hear is that the customer basically has to force the issue up to a certain point. At the same time, we would like to think that that sustainability will become more of a mainstream for our industry. Well, thank you very much. Very interesting. So we'll move to the next cycle. It's a real two issues actually would like to discuss. One is the inclusion that has to do with the human resources and how our industry approaches that, both from the employee, but also from the customer perspective. And secondly, the employment shortage, which it was always part of our industry issue, especially in the resorts where the numbers go up and down. But post-pandemic, everything that you hear is people looking for people, whether it's in management levels or in the rank and file. So I'm going to start with Dimitris because I think Dimitri, you're impacted more than anybody else on this panel over here. So tell us about, first of all, the inclusiveness, but more importantly, after that, how Wyndham is looking at the labor shortages and what they do about it.
No, that's interesting. And as you said, Tim, is one of the key challenges that we face. And look at this panel, right? There's no women. Three middle-aged men. That's you, Tim, Peter, and I, and Michael and Andreas are obviously a bit younger. So we definitely need to be more inclusive. It's again, I said it and I keep on saying it. It's not a sprint; it's a marathon. Change will not come in a day, and if we try to accelerate and we don't do it with the right pace, I think we're going to find ourselves in a lot of surprises because we're going to force change, and that never actually works. One of the things that we need to do, and it's not just about Wyndham, right? It's about every single hotel company. It's about the industry as a whole. We need to make our industry attractive again. And I will start, and I keep on mentioning the word education. If you don't start from the base, if you don't bring the new leaders in, if you don't show them the amazing opportunities that this industry has, the things that you can do. You know, I look at a lot of my colleagues here in our London office, right? They are 20, 22 years old. They've been to incredible places already. They met some incredible people. Hospitality is the biggest employer in the world, is one of the most fascinating industries. If we don't make sure that we start from the base and we bring these young leaders, I think we're going to face a huge challenge. One of the things that and you're right, you know, the labor shortage today is one of the biggest problems we face. And it's not just about the money. You know, if you raise somebody's salary, you say, you know, in the past, a typical employer will say, oh, you know, you wanna resign, I'll give you more money. It's not about the money anymore. It's about the whole package. It's about the inclusiveness. It's about sustainability. It's about your food waste. You know, I have employees of mine and team members, they say, they're interviewing me instead of me interviewing them. Instead, they say, what's your sustainability plan? What's your food waste? And I'm like, hold on, who's doing the interview here? I said, no, you're wrong. I'm interviewing you. I want to make sure that I work for the right company. That's how things change. If we don't understand what is actually happening out there and the change that is actually happening, we'll find ourselves, you know, being in the past. And I think what the minister, Mr. Kikilias, what he actually said, he's absolutely spot on. Tourists and travelers will actually interview the destination. They want to make sure that the destination is doing the right thing for them, for the planet, and for their own kids. I learned more about sustainability from my 23-year-old daughter than anybody else. And I'm glad that I did, because the new generation looks at things differently. So To answer your question, I know it was a long answer, but we need to work better. We need to do more things, and we need to start from the young leaders of the industry to make sure that when they come on board and they take, you know, this chair, or they do what Andreas does, we want to make sure that they have the right story and the right narrative. So that's kind of like my feedback.
Thank you. And I think throughout my career, I think one thing that it was always interesting to me is that hospitality was always tied to a hotel, and that's not necessarily the case. This is a very diverse industry with all kinds of exciting positions and different positions, whether it's within the hotel or outside the hotel or outside the travel industry in general.
Tim, hospitality is the taxi driver, is the guy at the border police. That's hospitality. It's not just about hotels. It's everybody.
So I will move a little bit. I'll skip Peter, but I'd like to address Michael and the minister, because Michael, the question is, have you seen any changes in the interest, for for your school? Secondly, do you see that there is something from your perspective that the industry needs to do to change it?
Thank you, Tim. I want to say everything that Dimitris said is spot on. I mean, that is literally, I should have him come to my classes and speak to all my students, because he is literally preaching everything and they believe him over us. So anytime faculty say anything, they'd be like, no, you bring in an experience, somebody from the industry, they believe it. So, Tim, Dimitri, I'd love to have you come to our classes. But literally, we are in alignment. We saw the same kind of concerns when the pandemic hit. We were worried what's going to happen to the enrollment, because we saw hospitality businesses were just decimated. The ones that are coming back have more of a structure behind them, so they're able to come back faster. And we've just been hanging on to optimism for our students. We tell them the jobs will be there. It looks bad. This was last year, and it's true. So it came back faster. It's still mostly leisure travelers, but business, I think, ultimately will come back. But it's true, and the jobs are back. They're there. Now the challenge is the labor piece of it, right? And there's all kinds of reports out there and news stories on why they leave, but no one really knows will they come back. So I've asked my faculty members, we need to do a research on this one. We need to poll all the workers who've left the hospitality industry and ask them, will they come back, and what's the conditions? And I think Dimitri mentioned a lot of that today. Our generation today, they care about the purpose. They want to know exactly what is the culture. You know, it goes back to what you said. They're interviewing you for the job. It's very interesting, right? They prioritize culture, belonging to it over the paycheck. They're like, you know, pay's okay, but I want to know that I fit in. I want to know that our values align. You know, the benefits, the pay, the other stuff is secondary to that. So I think, you know, what you asked me, Tim, is what can the industry do to help? If everybody, big, small, medium, independent, all work with the same focus, that the hospitality industry is here. We're here to stay. We're not ever going to go away. And we can somehow show consistency in benefits, in progression, professional development. Our graduates will stay. They're not going to leave the industry. So we did see a very small 4% decline from last year's enrollment to this year's enrollment, but we're a fairly big school too. Some of the smaller programs in the US actually had 10 to 20% drop, which amounts to roughly 100 students. To them, that's a big number. Yeah, for us, it's about 70 students. We're very fortunate that we're in Miami, so it's a metropolitan area. The hospitality business is thriving. People are coming down to South Florida for vacations. So that has helped us, you know, and we get students now who are graduating with a bachelor's degree, moving into an assistant director of food and beverage positions. So that's a great opportunity. And we tell them, hey, look, some people don't want to come back, but the door's wide open for you here, you know, and now's the time to get in and get promoted.
Great, thank you. If I can go to the minister for a minute, Mr. Kikilias, Greece was always been very big on vocational schools, and the hospitality hotel schools that they fed the market with not necessarily top managerial positions, but the middle-level positions and even specialty positions. Has always been part of the culture in Greece. Lately, that's not the case. So the question for you is, have you looked at that? How do you feel about that? And whether you feel that there is a need for more private institutions to be part of this program in Greece? Okay.
First of all, Tim, you put Peter together with you and Dimitris. Don't put Peter in the same category. Peter is still a teenager, okay? Let's clear things out. He's been working for the sector for half a century. It's unbelievable experience. Anyway, we're seeking to be pole position, first place, and we want to be champions. So the frank and honest response to your question, Tim, is that I'm not happy about what we provide in terms of education concerning tourism here in Greece. There was a problem in Greece with workers in the touristic sector. There was a problem in Europe and a global program prior to the pandemic. It's more than obvious that since the horizontal lockdowns, people have left the industry, and it's common sense. They try to find a way out in other areas. So will they come back? Well, I respect the quotes about ownership and about them doing it for the right reason, but definitely one of the key answers is they have to be well paid. So there is a general issue, especially for young people starting their careers, to know and feel that they are respected. It wasn't easy with 10 years of austerity measures here in Greece. So we're seeking ways to be able to give them the knowledge, upscaling and rescaling our education and our training programs in order for them to be able to be hired after that here or abroad. We would like them to be hired here in Greece with well-paid jobs. So our decision is to support the existing system, but also to find best practices. And we are opening up the education sector with touristic academies concerning private enterprises from abroad, and we're looking for best practices. Of course, your best practice. L'École de Tourisme de Lausanne is a best practice. How they run the education during the tourism sector in Hong Kong is a best practice. And we're seeking and looking into mixing and blending PPP, private-public partnerships, in that area in Greece also. So Monsieur Bassin, the CEO of Accor, was here. He's interested. great hoteliers and investors here in Greece are interested, and we're open to discuss this in a transparent and productive way, and we're investing on that. I mean, we're talking about a new generation and the generations to come in a very difficult situation with a global crisis of public health. You got to give them the tools, and you got to give them the inspiration, and we're seeking better, more quality ways to do that.
Great, thank you. It's interesting that, just to go back to Michael's comment, the schools anymore worldwide, especially schools like FIU, they're online, and almost more than 50%, if not all of the classes, can be online anymore. So it's interesting that someone in Greece can actually get education or part education from FIU or any other university throughout the world to help that process of educating people other than the companies themselves. Because my personal experience is a lot of times the people that we've gotten within the hotel, we needed to educate them before getting them into their actual job. So if that can be done ahead of time and give an interest to people to join the industry, that would be much better yet. Peter, a quick question for you. Have you seen any losses in revenue because of the shortage of labor the last year?
Well, we haven't seen a shortage of revenue because of labor. What we have seen is, first, we have our own school, Travel Leaders of Tomorrow, because we recognized years ago that we had a labor shortage, right? So, and Mr. Minister, next time we talk, we'd be more than happy to partner and explain how our school works.
Yes.
Our biggest concern, Tim, is the service levels, right? The shortage is having hotels and people in the hospitality having less employees. And then you have your high net worth, you have your customer coming to an island, coming to a resort, coming to a hotel, right? Are they going to get the same service levels? So that is a problem. It's the peaks and valleys of our industry. I can share with everyone that a few months ago, one major airline called us up and asked us if we had 2,000 agents to send them to them, from our furlough. Obviously we didn't. We're holding our agents for our own customers, but it is a problem. It's not impacting the revenue, but where it will impact and our concern. And as we're going from a pandemic to an endemic, and as tourism numbers will be solid past second, third, and fourth quarter, is what will be the service levels in because of the shortage. The other two places where our concern is, we have to do a better job of telling the young people that there's a future in travel. We saw this when the .coms came up, when everybody launched their booking platforms and buy tickets online, book hotels online, so forth and so on. Yet 70% of the market still goes to a travel advisor. That's in the United States, of course. And yet we need to do a better job of explaining all the different careers. When people say, I'm going to work at a hotel, we don't want to think of that they're going to be a chambermaid. There's marketing, there's management, there's finance, there's technology. And that's what the whole industry has to get together, because rest assured, as we all know, we are the biggest job producer in the world, travel and tourism.
Thank you. Well, we can spend a lot more time on the subject, but I think, Peter, you brought a very good point. The service levels, part of it because obviously using the pandemic as an excuse up to a certain point, some service levels have been justified. So I think for the future, the service levels could be a huge issue if we don't get enough employees or managers to actually do the job they're supposed to do, and support the guest experience. Because it's all about experience for us. I mean, at the end of the day, we have the the simple things, but the experience is what makes a difference. We have one last question anymore surrounding the projections, and I'd like to start with Andreas on that, because he's the one that has the statistics of what do you think the short-term recovery is going to be like, especially for Southern Europe, because that's what it's interesting for us.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I'll point you to two. So we've been running research on a very regular basis throughout the pandemic, and that's freely available to anybody that's interested. One's called the State of the Consumer Tracker, which tracks how individuals feel and their likelihood to travel, amongst other things, and how safe they feel getting on planes and so on. And the other one is the Hotel Sentiment Survey, which focuses more on owners and operators on a pan-European basis. And I think, when we ask the question of the owners and the operators when they expect full recovery to 2019 levels, the majority think that's going to happen by the second half of 2023. So there's a little way to go still in terms of full normalization of trade. But of course, there's improvement along the way there that's expected, and it varies very much by segment and by location, of course. And the caveat is, how many more variants we're going to have and all of that, needless to say. But what I think positively we've seen is significant pent-up demand for travel. So leisure, as we all know, still quite a big domestic focus. But if you look at the data since the summer season has kind of come to a close, it's stayed stronger than many expected. So I think the shoulder seasons have extended. Corporate travel has come back a little bit quicker in many markets than expected. So I think really positive in that regard. And I think the other positive impact we're seeing in the numbers and seeing in forecasts, financial forecasts, is that the pandemic has given hoteliers a real chance to review their business from top to bottom and make them more efficient. So as rate recovers, and we're seeing pretty strong rate performances in many markets, is that profitability should just flow through the P&L because you have a leaner and kind of better operating businesses. So, I think there's, in summary, what I would say is there's still a way to go. In terms of sentiment, that's certainly what's coming through. But, if we think back how we all felt 6, 12, 18 months ago, we're in a much better place for sure. And that's coming through in the data as well.
Thank you. Dimitri, any comments on that?
No, I'm 100% there with Andreas. It's the first time that there's so much interest on how many letters the Greek alphabet has. A lot of people in my team are asking me, can you please tell me there are more after Omicron? And I said, you know what? There's 24, but I hope we're not. So what I mean by that is that, we gotta deal with the cards we've been served, right? We gotta be agile. I think Andreas raised a very good point. Deloitte is doing a phenomenal job in getting the sentiment of what is happening out there. And certain markets are gonna come back earlier, and certain segments like leisure. Certain markets and other segments are going to be delayed, but you got to be agile and you got to be ready to deal with the cards you've been served. I mean, I've always said to my team, every time they ask me, they said, "Oh, you're Greek. You invented the oracle. Tell us what is going to happen." And I said, the only thing I can tell you is control the controllable. That's what is happening every day. That's what we've been doing for 2 years now. So.
Peter, I'll let you, give you, and then I'll ask the minister to give us his final thoughts.
Well, I think the summer months, May to September, I think we will surpass 2019, assuming there's no other variants, assuming that we're not going to teach the world any further the Greek alphabet, right? So we're very bullish on the summer. I think in the aggregate, by the end of 2023, you're looking at about a 70% recovery. Corporate is the one that's going to take the longest. And it's going to take the longest because part of it is, did corporations put more travel in their budget? What is their, they've already made their budgets for 2022. So what did they put in their budgets? What are the reductions in their budgets? We also, when you asked earlier about, the labor, I know one airline is short planes. One major airline is short at least 5 long-haul planes because of delay in Boeing. Another airline is short pilots. All this will impact travel and tourism over the summer. But I agree, there's a lot of pent-up demand. I think the winter months, January, February, March will slowly creep up. March, to me, is the key point to see the inflection curve, to see what happens after we get past January and February. People think spring and summer, what's going to happen. Then we'll see. I think in the summer it's going to be strong. Curious to see what the cruise companies are going to do given the pandemic and what rules and regulations they may or may not put out. But there's a lot of pent-up demand for people to go on cruises. And then corporate in the fall. Will corporate have, pick up steam September, October, November? Because nothing beats face-to-face meeting to get a deal. You can't do it over Zoom. So that's my 2 cents.
Thank you. Minister Kikilias, you have the last word.
Well, like I already said, we opened up 2020 without vaccines. It's not random. It's not by luck. It doesn't come easy. Nothing actually worth in life comes easy and for free. We've put and we're putting and will put a lot of effort, a lot of hard work, and we'll try to inspire tour operators, airline companies, travelers. We're campaigning first time ever in Greece for winter vacations. We're campaigning for city breaks. I'm going to be coming sooner or later to the US, campaigning not for the elections, but for American travelers to come to Greece. We're optimistic. We're not daydreamers. I think that step by step, we're coming back. Yes, it's not easy. I was Minister of Public Health here in Greece for 2 years, so I can totally understand how difficult it was. But we're there. I mean, we're fighting like everybody else is, but especially for Greece, the experience is unique. The momentum is great. Once again, of course, sustainability, of course, no emissions, of course, renewable energy, but security and safety in traveling will be the 2022 key decision for a traveler to fly abroad. So we're here, we're waiting for everybody, and I hope next time we get together face to face, not by Zoom, we all have good news and not bad news, and I hope humanity and the world will overcome this, because I see deaths and I see huge difficulties, and I see the new generation locked up in their houses and under huge pressure. We will turn this around, and I think tourism is the best way to do it.
Thank you very much. Thank you, all of you. We ran a little bit over the session, and I apologize for that, but thank you very much to all of you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care. Bye.